Alright, welcome to this talk about game art and procedural game environments. We're going to be talking about several ways in which you can procedurally create more content in a quicker way than with traditional approaches. At SideFX.com, you can read several of our user stories, including some of the best game studios in the world using Houdini to create their best-selling games. So, why are we looking at this procedural thing? Games have become more beautiful, more vibrant, and better looking over the last few years, and their budgets have been exploding. The usual answer for creating higher fidelity games has been more artists, more programmers, bigger budget, more time. However, it has become impossible to do that. We're seeing the point where we are hitting the breaking limit of spending budgets. We have seen small games being developed for 16-bit, Nintendo 64, professional studios coming on there, and for the next gen, or what is current gen now, we're seeing budgets that are normally ranging in the 30, 40, sometimes even 50 million US dollars. And for next gen, people are projecting games crossing the $100 million budget line. And it's just not going to be profitable. It is not going to work. The AAA business can't support spending that much money. So, what are we going to do about it? Well, we're going to go procedural. Instead of making everything by hand, we want the procedure to do all the dull and repetitive work for us. No one wants to place 20,000 streetlights, or 100,000 palm trees, or 500,000 windows in a city. It is not very interesting work, and your artists are better spent doing more actual creative work, relevant work, work that actually helps making your game better. So let's take a look at a pipeline as you get taught how a pipeline works. This is the waterfall module, and if you look at it, you will see that it's a fully linear approach. We have an idea or a concept, which becomes a proposal, and that becomes a design. And the idea is that the design document is completely finished before production begins. After the design document has been approved, coding and level design starts. After all the content has been created, things get tested, the bugs get fixed, and we release. However, this is not a feasible model. As we've seen, if you have been in games development, this is much more like the actual model. It is a bit more chaotic, and it's a cyclical, destructive process. We create something, and then we test it, we destroy it if it's not good, and then we build it up again. We go back and forth. We go back and forth making changes until we don't have time to iterate and change anymore. So when is that specific time? Well, it is pretty much when we hit the crunch. So, with the traditional approach, this is basically the stress level for your employees. We have pre-production, we have all the ideas flowing, people are still very creative, and they have the time to test out things. Then we hit production, and the final levels have to actually be built. And during crunch, no changes can be made anymore. Now, with the procedural approach, we can do it slightly differently. In pre-production, we think about what we want, and in production all the tools are built. And after we have all the tools there, we can keep changing things for how long we want. And it's what we call opportunity time. And opportunity time is a much nicer way to work, because until the last moment you can focus on making the game more fun instead of fixing all your last bugs. So let's take a look at a procedural tool. I knew that if I was going to make a city, I needed a lot of windows, so I made a procedural window tool. Now the thing is I want to stress here is we have control. So as you can see, I have a number of sliders which I can change and move around to change the shape of my windows. I can make them round, I can make them tall, I can separate them, and I can have several different versions of them. I can just iterate through them. Now, all these versions are stored up there in the tree. Now, I also have a separate part that actually creates the actual windows for me. I can make them deeper, I can change the size and thickness of the frames, I can even change what type of iteration in this particular window we have. So we can have closed curtains, for example, or we can have open curtains, and this all propagates nicely across all our building modules. You don't have to do manual UVs anymore. It's all done for you. Again, we don't want to take away the design. We want to make sure you have all the control. But we do want to take away all the slow and annoying parts of the process and take those away, so your artist can focus on the actual creative stuff. Now, I've been stressing control, and I want to show you something here. If I split polygon here, you would say that this would break my tool. Most tools wouldn't be able to do this. However, Houdini is smart. Houdini can handle things like this. And again, we can move these things fully in real time to design while our art director is standing next to us. So, if we want to go further, we are totally free to do that. If our art director suddenly decides our game is going to be futuristic instead and time is warped, that is totally possible. We can totally move and change anything in any way we like, and we don't have to change anything like the UVs. So this is a very simple example of how we can have control and still work a lot faster than with traditional methods. So let's have another look at actually creating a space. Let's create an interior space here for our player to walk around in. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be shooting windows. So here you see a simple building that I've just lined up, and what I'm going to do is press this button, and you see the small rig appear here, and I can slide it along the wall. And I can grab these handles, and let's turn off that piece of geometry here to make it a bit more clear. I can just move this around, and I dynamically create a hole in my geometry. I can even twist it and turn it if I want. Now, if I want a second window, I just press the button again, and you can see how easy it is to just create the structure the way I want it to be. We can also just also copy one of these windows if we want to have more consistency. Now, the thing is, of course, punching a few holes is not that impressive. But as soon as we click here result and remove the preview, we see that our procedures automatically fit the windows to be the exact size. And we've also created an entire interior. Now, again, this interior seems like it might be a bit random, but we have full control. We can completely move the place and location and even rotation of our stairs, and we can even go so far as to creating atria. So what we can do, in this case I've projected circles onto the ground which automatically punch a hole through it. And this is far more sophisticated than a simple boolean. Actually what you can do is you can draw any kind of shape on the floor. If you want, say, a destructive part, you can do that. Now as soon as we go to the stairs procedure, you see that the stairs have automatically been detailed for us. And the nice thing about this is that as soon as you have a slanted polygon, it works. Now let's say we want a giant facade, and again we want the user to have control but not have to worry about every small little detail unless he wants to. So I can just drag out this entire facade right here, and Houdini is going to cut up all those windows for me. I don't get one big one, I just get an entire facade of appropriately sized windows. Let's say we want to shoot a window up here again for good measure, and I'll just leave it in preview mode so you can see how well the window automatically fits. It's scaled perfectly. You don't have to worry about it. Let's say actually we want to change this window to be a door instead. We can just paint that to be a door, and here we go. We're done. We have full control over the final end shape of our building, but we're producing it in a much faster rate. And we can change it within seconds instead of hours or minutes. So what we're going to show you now is an automatic buildings procedure for buildings you can't enter. Now, what I want to say is that anything you see in this demo or the previous demos we've shown, that we've not sped it up at all. So what we have here is terrain, and in the second input we have lots of curves. And we can grab any of these curves and modify them. We can just drag them around. And as soon as we go to our first preview here, what we see is that we have the sides of our road being defined. This is a very efficient preview to work and see what you're having. As soon as we go to the second preview, we see that Houdini fills in the negative space. Now, if we go to the third preview, we see that we even have some buildings automatically being filled in that place. And if a place is too small to contain a building, a building doesn't get placed there. We can also paint where we don't want buildings to be. Again, we have full control. Now the nice thing is as our approach is fully non-linear, we can change the terrain without having to update any other assets. Again, everything's procedural. In a normal production environment, if our designer suddenly wants our level to be on a hill, we'd pretty much have to start from scratch. We could reuse some small parts, but not everything would automatically be updated, as we see right here. Again, we can just change this entire terrain and everything updates. Now, because boxes are a bit boring, I've made a procedure that automatically creates buildings. And you saw how fast that went. You saw how fast that iterated. Now, again, we have full control over this procedure. So if we go to this preview mode, we can see that we can very easily change the size of some of our tiles. We can make, for instance, our bottom floor smaller or taller, and we can change any of the other sizes. And as soon as we turn it off, we can go back. Again, like we saw in the previous version, we can paint where doors go. Again, we can also remove doors in a very simple, same fashion. Again, we have full control over the end result, but we just get there faster. Now, let's take a look at the roads. Because if anyone's done a racing game, they know that creating a road system, especially with intersections, can be a pain. However, in this case, Houdini's created all the roads with parametric UVs along the sides, but no stitching anywhere. Again, we even have our traffic lights being created automatically. Also, if we're going to look at the decoration, we have full control over where our decoration goes. We can have lots of palm trees, a medium amount, or fairly few, or change the scale of our street lights to be bigger or smaller, whatever we desire. Again, we're not taking away control, we're just not forcing you to place all those thousands of street lights by hand. And if you really want, you can still remove one manually or move it around. So what we're going to do now is we're going to export two parts. We're going to export our FBX and our simple geo out, and we're going to open Unity. And as soon as we open Unity, we see that we have an FBX model which automatically comes preloaded with all of the materials right there. And we're going to place an instancer asset which we created. It's an XML reader. And what we're going to do is we're going to read in our live demo simple geo object, which is just an XML file. And all our instances are automatically placed in the right decision. So Houdini isn't a stupid tool that just makes a giant FBX out of everything. We can actually do instancing. And as soon as we play a player start here, we can actually walk around in our level. And we've created this entire level in under 3 minutes. Now, walking around a level that you've created in 3 minutes is great, but again, power is useless without control. So what if we want to change something? Now this is where our workflow really shines. Because our workflow is non-linear, we can change our road layout. So let's say we want to have an additional road. We're just going to put down an additional curve and connect it at the top, and we're going to draw out that road. And as soon as we have that, we can still modify it until we see something we like. So let's do something like this, and we can even change our terrain again. And the thing is, the things we update change, but everything else stays more or less the same. It updates accordingly, according to our procedure. So our roads will be moved up, but the terrain below the roads will automatically be flattened. And now take a look at the speed. Basically in about 4 seconds, we've created our updated environment. Now, again, we've been stressing control quite a bit, and I just want to show you this. Let's say we're not happy with a particular structure. We can, for instance, make it taller, or we can go even further. We can change the shape entirely. Again, we want to have this control. It could be that you use the automatic buildings only as a proxy, but use other buildings that you've defined manually to use instead. So what we can do is we can do an extrude here and another extrude, but still we can decorate this automatically by our procedure, which means we can work a lot quicker, creating content a lot faster. So as soon as we go to our tree view, we hit render for our FBX, our unique geometry, and render again. And as soon as we go to Unity, our FBX automatically gets loaded and updated. We click on the instancer and click build objects from XML. With a few seconds, and there we go. And as soon as we press play, we see our level being updated with our unique building in place. So you see how fast it is to create a very interesting, very unique environment very fast while having full control over that environment. So how far can you take this? Well, we thought we'd prove that by creating this small demo here. This is a fairly big city. This city takes about 3 minutes to walk from one side to the other at a relatively high speed, as you can see. And the nice thing is, because we have two types of procedures, one for interior buildings and one for non-interior buildings, we can very easily create the buildings that we want, and we can define the buildings we need full and 100% control over, or the buildings that we just want to outline. And this entire city computes in about 30 seconds and then exports into Unity, and it runs very fast as well. Again, because we've got all these instances working. So city generation in Houdini is definitely something that is very feasible. But let's look at procedural landscapes as well. It is also possible to do very natural landscapes in Houdini. Actually, it's better than anything else doing this because it can go beyond the traditional height map planes. So if you remember the footage I showed you at the beginning of this presentation, this has all been created in Houdini. And I will take you through the workflow. The first thing is what we're going to do is we're going to find the main surface to walk on. And then we draw on the paths, which is a similar approach as we took to the city. And as soon as we've defined our gameplay paths, we're going to sweep them to give them some breadth, give them some width. And we push them down into the landscape to create some canyons. Again, we can add as many curves as we want, create ramps or anything else, and we can move them. And as soon as we are happy with the layout, we convert to a volume. Now this is what your standard height map cannot do. We can actually create tunnels. We can create land bridges, and we can do it in a rapid and interesting way. You don't have to worry about topology because the topology is perfect afterwards. And after a subdividing process, we can even procedurally detail this entire environment. Also, we can choose not to detail the areas where our player needs to walk, so we have a smooth mesh for him to walk on. Also, we get our own RUVs in there, and as soon as we do an ambient occlusion pass and subtract the Y normal, we can actually place vegetation and grow it in a natural way, as vegetation would in the real world. Again, it is all done via painting, so you can change the seed, or even paint it manually to add or remove additional vegetation. What we then do is we store a T3D file, which is some sort of an XML, and again an FBX. As soon as we load those in, we see we have all our instances in place. Now, after then placing our unique mesh, and applying the shader, and building our lighting, our level is complete, and we can actually walk around in it. Now, I'm sure you agree that the quality that this level is almost at a production level. And the thing is, we've created this entire level in, well, in a lot less than an hour. And we get all the UVs, and we can make changes to this level in a few minutes. Actually, this procedure is now being updated, and it's getting a lot faster as well with the new 12.1 VDB volumes. So, the thing is here, we're not taking away control. We don't want you to give up that control. We want you to be like an art director. We want the computer to do all the boring and tedious work for you. We want you to have the creative control over the things you really feel passionate about instead of being bogged down by placing 20,000 streetlights. And that is the real power of procedural. We want to alleviate that pressure, and we want it to be able to push the AAA market beyond, as we've done with the movie market. I want to thank you for watching this video, and I hope you found it interesting. If you have any questions, you can always visit the SideFX site or ask any questions on the forums. Also, feel free to send me an email at fhoekstra, that is Hoekstra, @ sidefx.com. Thank you very much.